Hi, my name is Heather Larson. On behalf of myself and my co-authors, thank you for checking out our presentation. A recent systematic review on early sport specialization found that almost half of the relevant literature was composed of non-data-driven papers. Over the next few minutes, I'll draw on 5 of our recent data-rich papers to challenge current narratives on early specialization and sport participation. These great data come from detailed surveys completed by 265 youth swimmers and their parents, as well as 205 master swimmers who were currently training with a coach and teammates in a formal adult swimming program and also had previous youth swimming experience. Swimming has a reputation for being an early specialization sport associated with relatively high rates of burnout and dropout, yet is also well suited to lifelong participation. This makes it an excellent context for investigating both short-term and long-term effects of early specialization. But first, what is early specialization? Here are 3 profiles of youth athletes. According to Jayanthi et al.'s specialization scale, Amir is the most highly specialized, scoring 3 out of 3. Meanwhile, Kara would be considered moderately specialized, and Bethany would go in the least specialized category. With Gallant and colleagues' dichotomous approach to measuring early specialization, Bethany and Amir would be considered early specializers, but not Kara, even though she and Bethany have more similar profiles than Bethany and Amir. None of these athletes meet all 3 of the AOSSM consensus criteria: participation by prepubertal children in one sport to the exclusion of other sports, with intensive training and/or competition for more than 8 months per year. The point here is that the lack of a standardized definition and measure of early specialization makes it difficult to compare, synthesize, and draw conclusions from the evidence that's out there in the literature. This issue may also explain why our findings contradict prevalent assumptions about early specialization. So let's start with our data on burnout and dropout from sport. The current story is that early specialization is associated with increased burnout and dropout. We focused in on participants who were 12 or 13 at the time of data collection, which is a prime age for dropout from sport. Their parents had completed detailed questionnaires on the swimmer's sport participation from age 6 to 12. We looked at 15 potential markers of early specialization in swimming, and none of them showed meaningful positive associations with burnout characteristics or dropout. In fact, some of our training volume items showed weak but positive relationships with intentions to continue swimming. When we examined training volume and autonomy support concurrently in our full sample of youth swimmers, we didn't find a significant relationship between training volume and enjoyment. But there was a significant pathway from autonomy support to enjoyment, which indirectly predicted burnout and intentions to continue swimming. While our retrospective interviews with master swimmers found some indications of burnout resulting from high training volumes in youth swimming, the negative consequences of training volume seemed to be buffered by the characteristics of coaches, the quality of relationships with teammates, and swimmers' perceived competence. Let's turn now to prevalence. The current story is that we're in an era of early specialization, and even if we don't know the exact numbers, it's prevalent enough to be problematic. Thanks to the questionnaires completed by our youth swimmers' parents, for 238 participants, we knew the number of sports they were doing each year from the time they were 6 up until age 12. From this data, we identified 3 general patterns of participation over time by comparing their average sports per year from age 6 to 8 to age 10 to 12. 28% of participants decreased their number of sports as they got older, which is the pattern recommended by most long-term athlete development models. 14% of our sample showed participation in a stable number of sports over time, and the majority of our sample, 58%, increased the number of sports they were doing as they got older, particularly around age 11 and 12, indicative of a secondary sampling period. This increase was especially pronounced for girls. Notably, only 4% of participants participated in a single sport each year from age 6 all the way through age 12, and this is from within a swimming context, a sport known for early specialization. So it seems that early specialization may not be all that prevalent or psychologically harmful, but this all depends on how you define and measure it. Where do we go from here? I'd like to propose 3 avenues for future research. 1. Let's look more critically at multisport participation. Have we been inventing problems with early specialization and ignoring problems with early sampling? 2. Let's investigate this phenomenon of secondary sampling and the role that school sports may play in increasing sport participation, particularly for girls. 3. Let's expand our conceptualizations of specialization and sampling beyond youth sport and look further into applications in adult sport. In our most recent publication, we identified 3 distinct participation profiles of master swimmers: low competitive specializers, high competitive specializers, and samplers. What outcomes are associated with adult sampling and specialization? I look forward to hearing your thoughts and continuing this discussion in the comments section.